Welcome to the seventh episode of our educational series on geographical thought. In the previous video, we discussed Plato and his idea that the Earth must be spherical. But Plato's reasoning was largely philosophical. He believed that the sphere is the most perfect geometric form, and therefore the Earth should naturally have that shape. Now, in this video, we move to another major Greek thinker, Aristotle. Aristotle takes this discussion a step further. Instead of relying mainly on abstract reasoning, he begins to ask a different question. What evidence do we actually observe in the natural world that tells us something about the shape of the Earth? Before discussing his geographical ideas, it is useful to briefly look at Aristotle's life and intellectual background. Aristotle was born in 384 BCE in the city of Stagira, located in northern Greece. His father, Nicomachus, was a physician who served in the Macedonian royal court. Because of this background, Aristotle grew up in an environment where the study of nature and careful observation were highly valued. This early exposure to the natural sciences later influenced the way he approached knowledge. At the age of about 17, Aristotle traveled to Athens, which at that time was the intellectual center of the Greek world. There he joined Plato's Academy, one of the earliest institutions devoted to philosophical learning. Aristotle remained in the academy for nearly 20 years, first as a student and later as a teacher. Although Aristotle greatly respected Plato, he gradually developed a different intellectual approach. While Plato often relied on abstract philosophical reasoning, Aristotle emphasized the importance of systematic observation of the natural world. After Plato's death in 347 BCE, Aristotle left Athens and spent several years traveling and conducting research. Later, he was invited by King Philip II of Macedon to become the tutor of the young Prince Alexander, who later became known as Alexander the Great. Eventually, Aristotle returned to Athens and established his own school called the Lyceum. The Lyceum became an important center of learning where Aristotle and his students studied a wide range of subjects, including philosophy, biology, physics, ethics, politics, and natural science. Aristotle wrote extensively on many topics, but one of his important works for understanding his ideas about the Earth and the universe is on the heavens. One of Aristotle's most significant contributions to geographical thought was his argument that the Earth is spherical. Unlike Plato, who reached this conclusion mainly through philosophical reasoning, Aristotle supported the idea using observations from the natural world. One of his most important arguments came from lunar eclipses. During a lunar eclipse, the Earth passes between the sun and the moon and casts a shadow on the moon. Aristotle observed that the shadow of the Earth on the moon is always circular. He reasoned that only a spherical object could consistently produce a circular shadow from every direction. If the Earth were flat or irregular in shape, the shadow would sometimes appear elongated or distorted. Since the shadow is always circular, Aristotle concluded that the Earth must be spherical. Another observation concerned the changing visibility of stars at different locations on Earth. Aristotle noticed that some stars visible in southern regions, such as Egypt, could not be seen further north in Greece. As a person traveled north or south, the pattern of visible stars gradually changed. Aristotle argued that this phenomenon could only occur if the surface of the Earth was curved, which again supported the idea that the Earth is spherical. These observations represent one of the earliest attempts to explain the shape of the Earth through empirical evidence rather than philosophical speculation. Aristotle also supported a geocentric model of the universe. According to this view, the Earth occupies the center of the cosmos, while the sun, moon, and planets revolve around it. Although this model was later replaced by the heliocentric theory, it remained the dominant explanation of the universe for many centuries and strongly influenced both astronomy and geographical thought. Another important aspect of Aristotle's work appears in his treatise Meteorologica. In this work, Aristotle attempted to explain a wide range of natural processes occurring in the atmosphere and on the Earth's surface. He discussed phenomena such as clouds, winds, rain, snow, thunder, lightning, evaporation, rivers, and earthquakes. Particularly notable is his attempt to explain how moisture rises from the Earth through the action of heat and later returns as precipitation. Although expressed in the conceptual language of his time, this idea resembles an early attempt to understand what we now call the hydrological cycle. Through these discussions, Aristotle tried to show that atmospheric and environmental phenomena occur because of natural processes rather than supernatural causes. For this reason, his work is often considered an early contribution to meteorology and physical geography. Aristotle also reflected on the global distribution of climate. Because the Earth is spherical, different parts of its surface receive different amounts of solar heating depending on their distance from the equator. Greek thinkers, including Aristotle, therefore described the Earth as divided into climatic zones. These included a torrid zone near the equator, where solar heat was believed to be extremely intense, temperate zones in the middle latitudes, which were considered most suitable for human life, and frigid zones near the poles, where extreme cold was expected to prevail. In classical geographical thought, this idea was often represented as 5 climatic zones, arranged symmetrically around the equator. Aristotle also suggested that geographical conditions, such as climate and terrain, influence human societies. He believed that regions with moderate climates were more favorable for the development of balanced and stable civilizations, while extreme climates could limit social and cultural development. Although these ideas were based on limited evidence, they represent an early attempt to explore the relationship between environment and human society, an issue that later became central in geographical thinking. Taken together, Aristotle's work represents an important stage in the evolution of geographical thought. He moved the discussion about the Earth away from myth and purely philosophical speculation and emphasized observation, logical reasoning, and the systematic study of nature. His ideas about the spherical Earth, atmospheric processes, climatic zones, and the relationship between environment and human societies helped lay important foundations for later developments in geography. In the next stage of this intellectual tradition, Greek scholars would go even further. Building on the idea of a spherical Earth, they began to measure its size and represent its surface more systematically. One of the most important figures in this development was Eratosthenes, who calculated the circumference of the Earth with remarkable accuracy. We will discuss his contributions in the next episode. Thank you for watching. If you find this series helpful for understanding geographical thought, you may consider subscribing to the channel to follow the upcoming discussions.